This soliloquy is quite crucial to setting up the storm scene and the entrance of poor Tom and the kind of chaos that the storm scene represents. Lear's madness, the fool's rhetoric, and the entry of this new character, poor Tom, is that nexus point. And then from there, Edgar goes on a further journey. Up until now, we don't really know very much of him. In relation to Edmund, he's really quite pathetic. He's often played as really meek, naive, innocent, trustworthy. He's fallen into this trap so easily. He looks very foolish to us. But this is almost an unprecedented moment where he, through the confusion of his life, is chased out by his father, and he doesn't understand why. And he decides to become something else. He decides to disguise himself. Okay, that's literally true. But here he actually loses a bit of his identity. And this is really what takes us into this poor Tom moment, is him losing himself. And that's what's really very important in setting him up for the journey to become the hero of this piece. Because of course it's Edgar who will save his father from suicide. It's Edgar who will be the nameless, faceless hero that defeats Edmund and will be expected to rule at the end of the play. Remember Nahum Tate's version, Edgar is the echo of Cordelia. Already he is maybe the echo of Cordelia, but he marries Cordelia in the comedy version, the Nahum Tate version. So here we see the beginning of the hero's downfall and his journey outwards. I heard myself proclaimed. I don't know why, but I really like that first line. So what he's saying is, his name was called out, proclaimed, right? But to me, it's something more profound about naming. He heard his name. He heard himself, his identity being stamped. He heard who he was. And in a tree, he escaped the hunt. So, I mean, he's not just being chased. He is, in fact, the animal on the run. I think now of the time in England where there's conspiracy, where the gunpowder plot has been overturned and the plotters gathered up, and England in a time of terrorism and fear, everybody suspecting everyone else. There's a sense of paranoia here. But typical for Shakespeare, he's able to shift perspectives. It's not the chaser, we see them too, but the pursued. No port is free, no place that guard and most unusual vigilance does not attend my taking. So everywhere they're going to pay careful attention. They're going to have most unusual vigilance to grab him. Whilst I may escape, I will preserve myself. That word sticks out. Proclaimed, preserved, keep, protect, hide something of who I am, and am bethought to take the basest and most poorest shape that ever penury and contempt of man brought near to beast. It was only this year that in class someone noticed the trading, again, think of the wheel of fortune. He's gone from up to down. He's now the base. He's the basest and poorest shape. The way he's, okay, so practically what he's saying is, to escape, he'll disguise himself as the lowest. But in a more profound way, he's saying something about what's going on in his life. He's becoming the lowest. Man as beast, as we're going to see, this becomes a continued theme. And now here it's really crucial to say, I think in the best productions, we actually see the transformation of Edgar. Sometimes, like in Peter Brook's production, we see the transformation of Kent as well. But I think in poor productions, we don't really see this thinking through that Edgar's doing. He's transforming himself. He's going to make his face filthy. Again, base, filth, grime. Blanket my loins, elf all my hair in knots. What an amazing verb. Knots. Dreadlocks almost, I guess. And with presented nakedness, outface the winds and persecutions of the sky. In some productions, he is, in fact, naked. He's going to cover his face. That helps us understand why maybe he can't be recognized. But I think in a more profound sense, he's going to drive himself into the mire, make himself nearly naked in this freezing, cold, unhospitable environment. And the winds and persecutions of the sky. Nature is no friend here to man. The country gives me proof and precedent of Bedlam beggars. If accurate AO3 would look into the homelessness, the wandering beggars and insane of this time, he is playing a role. And he specifically tells us what kind of role. They have roaring voices. They strike themselves. They beat themselves. They're with pins, wood pricks, nails, sprigs of rosemary. I mean, this self-flagellation particularly recommends itself to madness. But I wonder also if there's an echo of kind of Catholic, Catholic traditions of punishment. I don't know. There might be. And with this horrible object from low farms, poor pelting villages, sheepcotes and mills, sometime with lunatic bands, sometimes with prayers. This is particularly interesting when we think again about register. Insane language. Lunatic. But then also prayers. In the madness, in the language of the fool, poor Tom, Lear's madness, there is some truth, there is something holy, there is something reaching out for something precious. And, I think as critics like Kermode and Orwell say, particularly with the fool, he sounds so silly, his register's so low, but actually, a lot of what he's saying is more sane than the quote-unquote rationalism of a Cornwall, of a Goneril, of a Regan, of the performed, sinister actions of an Edmund. This idea of the interchange, madness and truth, low and high, that's all at play, I think, here in King Lear. And he's enforced the charity. So with all this, he's going to beg. So he's going to play this role of the beggar. But remember, inside, he's going to preserve who he is. It's outwardly. The thing I want you to think about is what's happening to him in the storm scene. Because I would argue, or my interpretation, what I'm asserting, is that, like Kent, something happens to him. Edgar goes through a crisis of identity and he gets lost in this role. Poor Turley, good poor Tom. And this is one of the best lines in the whole play for me. Poor Tom, that's something yet. I can still be something. I can still be something. Because I'm not Edgar anymore. Edgar, I nothing am. I am no longer. Now, yeah, he's just escaped. It's a plot. It could be comedy, right? Okay, he's been tricked and he's going to be chased and he'll come back and it'll be fine. But this speech elevates Edgar's interior world into something much more profound. Imagine, Blanche turning to the audience and having such a thought process, really meditating out loud, that her identity is finished. This is unique, I'd say, to Shakespeare. I mean, written hundreds of years before Tennessee Williams. But this moment is quite unique, which is the character speaking out loud, transforming who they are, and having an open crisis of identity. This is something, okay? And this line is really important. Poor Tom, okay? That's something yet. I'm going to hold on to this role I'm going to play because I'm nothing. And again, it's easy to say the word haunts the play. But when it shows up, when it's resonating and echoes throughout, the kind of nihilism, sadness, loss, zero, nothing, or later you'll see never. This loss is really going to get much worse throughout the play. It's stitching up. So it starts in those first moments of the love test, and it's just going to get worse and worse for all these characters. Now, whether the play ends with a sense of hope or not, that's something that different, basically centuries, have had radically different interpretations about. For you, I want you to think about Edgar as a character, Edgar in this moment, Edgar earlier on with Edmund, Edgar in comparison to Kent.